Leaving Rome in the early evening on board the good ship Equinox, we sailed south to Naples on the Tyrrhenian Sea. Mario and I are going to be visiting Pompeii. The girls are going to the Amalfi Coast. So, this is the harbor of Naples. It's very busy. We arrived at about 6:30 in the morning. This is about 6:30 in the morning. This is just gives you an idea just how modern the harbor is. And we stopped off at the cameo shop or cameo factory di Paolo, and I was able to watch this artisan make a new cameo over his shoulder. Just to get, he didn't care. Stuck the camera over his shoulder and watched it. It was very interesting, very good skill. And then hopped on a bus to go to Pompeii, and when you go to Pompeii through the tour, this is what you see. You get introduced to this right away. I call it the poor souls. These are the people who could not get away from Vesuvius when it erupted. And they got trapped in the ash, and their bodies decayed. Their bones didn't, but their bodies did, leaving a hollow that was filled with archaeologists discovered as they would fill these voids with plaster, and that's what you're seeing there, the plaster. Then we walk across this area over the original wall, and we're now in 79 AD. And this is looking at, first you're looking at the amphitheater, and now we're walking into the Palestra Grande, which is a gymnasium for young people, an outdoor gymnasium for young people. Right in the middle of it, there was a massive pool. That is a Strigli. Yeah, Strigli. That's a Strigo. That's a Strigo. That's a scraping tool for scraping the oils and stuff off their skin, because they didn't have soap back in that day. So they would use sand and they would scrape it off after doing their bathing thing. These are this food that they found, but they're all carbonized, of course. And some of the food, like some of the pits and stuff, are from peaches, which was considered a very exotic fruit. So he can tell you just how. In some places, Pompeii was very well off. This fresco came from a villa that's outside the walls of Pompeii, and unfortunately the villa is below the water table, so they had to save this fresco, and they brought it into the Grande, the gymnasium. And I was intrigued by just how this amphitheater was built and how it's held up. It actually could hold 20,000 people. And this was built in, 70 BC, before Rome was making Pompeii even a colony. They had to fight the Samnites to take over this area. The Samnites were, tough fighting people of the hills, along with the Etruscans. And Rome eventually just kind of took over and developed them into the society. But this was built before that became a colony of Rome by two fellows, magistrates. We'll talk about that later. This is the estate of Julia Felix. This was a businesswoman who suffered, this house suffered from the earthquake of 62 AD, and she converted it to renting out these rooms to other people. It had these beautiful pools that, if I could sneak around the pool there, these line of pools. Water is constantly running through this. You'll see this. It's a unique house, a beautiful open area. The house has interesting. See the black on the wall there, and you see a black stripe on the floor. That told slaves that they had to stop and ask permission to come into the room. That was typical of that situation. That pool in the middle there is a impluvium, and there, right above that pool, is there was a hole in the roof that would collect rainwater, and so they would constantly be able to get rainwater. I don't know how they kept other things out. You can see some of the dust, or that was a little example of the ash and how it's kind of balls of ash kind of thing, and that beautiful frescoes. This is a pool, believe it or not, and that staircase-like thing is actually a waterfall. So there was a constant water running, and that pool would fill up and it would drain. You see the drain pipe, you can see the drain opening, and there was a pipe that led out to those pools that we saw earlier. And right, we're walking along, there's a trench here that I didn't get a good picture of, but there are pipe running along through here. So they know how to make pipe. These frescoes, they just blow me away. They're so pretty. The reds and the yellows. And what's interesting here, these doorways, I'm wondering if that happened when the earthquake hit and damaged the place. And there are heat rooms, places to run heat. I think this was a way to warm the water, because we're walking into what's considered the steam room. And I'm showing you the plaster, how thick it is on the walls of this steam room. That's quite interesting. The grate protects what the steam room was made out of. That's a carved marble unit to allow the people in the steam room to cool themselves with water. Now, we're out on so we step out onto the Via della Abbondanza, which is the road of abundance. And you're seeing some of the damage. This is probably from the earthquake more than the ash, because the ash actually came down soft enough to cover a lot of things. But it could be damaged when the roofs caved in too. Nothing's being explained on this, but this could also come from the earthquake. You can see the tracks from the chariots back in the day. This was a two-lane road. That's interesting. This is the house of the Venus in a shell. Now, another good-sized impluvium in the middle of what would have been the roof of this house. And the roof was actually designed to capture a lot of water and bring it into the pool when it rained. How they lived that way, it's pretty amazing. It's a beautiful garden. It's a magnificent house, actually. It's quite large. And the walls are, it's probably two-story. And this is the girl, Venus in the shell. She's the center point of this street for most of the tour. It's an easy tour. It's actually a very short tour. We did not see it. Now this is a wreath that is made of stucco, but look how fine it is, and it survived. It has survived all that time. So you know that the ash kind of protected things this time. Obviously it wasn't damaged during the earthquake. But there probably were some things that were damaged by the earthquake. Different houses. So the guide is pointing out to us right here that these massive doors were wood, and they basically corroded away and left a void, and the void was filled with plaster, and they plastered these doors, and this is, they were able to put them back up, but as plaster doors, not wood doors. And what's interesting is that street food, these were restaurants, taverns. This was advertising for somebody running for a public office. These are a couple of those, actually. If you could read it, that's Latin. There's only a chunk of it, but it is Latin. And every so often you'll find these fountains. These fountains had running water, and during it fill up, and then at night the road was the sewer, and they would wash the sewer by dumping the water out of those. They would open up the fountain pools and dump it in, and then you'd have to step across those stepping stones so you wouldn't step in the water or whatever. And I'm not sure. I haven't figured out what that is yet. I'll have to get to that. But you see these sloping walls? This is modern. This is to keep, because alongside this street, the other side has not been excavated, so they're trying to keep the ash from coming into the street, so they put those walls up there. But here's another, we call it the McDonald's of Pompeii. These taverns, there's like 80 of them in Pompeii so far that they have found. This is a bakery, and that device over there was used to grind the grain into flour. And here's another fellow asking to be voted in as a magistrate of the town, and it's a political sign. Yeah, vote for me. Pretty cool. Still see that. Another fountain. That's what they'd be carved out to something fancy like that, and water would be pouring in there and on a regular basis. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And if there was, so you didn't have to walk in the street, you could step on those stones and walk across the street. Here's a nicer area where they were storing food. Now those would have other pots put in to store the food. They wouldn't store the food directly in those pots. They would put pots inside those pots because they would be hot, but it keeps it warm. Or they'd be cold, they'd be wine. And this one's really fancy. This is definitely the McDonald's of Pompeii. And those openings, they would put pots in of wine or food, and you had the street food all along this road. Pretty incredible, pretty neat. I mean, how undifferent from us were they, really? They spoke a different language, but, they loved to eat. They kept their water flowing. Now there's a modern addition. So I wonder if that's actually used at times. It's hard to tell. Again, another tavern, another restaurant. And this is a big one. This served a lot of people, and a nice fresco to show that. Pretty cool. Yeah, you got it. That is just neat. Again, those openings held other pots that would go in there. Oh, that's a downspout that shows you that's what's left of terracotta downspout, and we're heading toward this little display of a skeleton of a horse that they found. And it gives you an idea. These horses that had to pull these chariots, and those spaces on the walk were just wide enough so the chariots could get through. But these horses are tiny. They were tiny horses, almost like ponies. They weren't very big. This is the chariot horse. Again, stepping stones, step across. This is one of the gates to the town, to the city. And we're kind of stepping out of that area. Gate. But what is right there, that is the original viaduct that was dug through. That's how they discovered that Pompeii was rediscovered Pompeii. They dug this viaduct back in, in the 1700s, I think it was. And that's how they discovered that there was something going on. They ran into these walls, but that's the original viaduct that was being put underground. And they discovered all this. So, looking back into the amphitheater, there are these plaques that tell about who built this. So there's Quintus Vulgus and Marcus Porcius who built this, and they get the honor of a colonial honor. And so this also means that they're honored by that. They become magistrates as a result. And we get to go inside the amphitheater at this point. So we're just kind of walking down, looking at different things. What's really interesting is this amphitheater actually had a concert at one time. Oh, here's another one showing it. If you can read Latin, you can see it. There's the parts of their name, not all their names, but pieces are missing. But they would show. And you can read about it here if you want. If you want to pause, you can probably read some of that. And we're stepping out into it, and here's the advertisement for Pink Floyd concert. You have to look up when that happened, but you can look it up. 20,000 people this thing can hold in the 70 BC. That is crazy, and it obviously withheld the earthquake. That didn't seem to be bothering it. It's solid as all get out. Beautiful building. I mean, the way it's built. But this is an amphitheater, so there was, you know, other things. That's Mario and myself having our picture taken in the amphitheater. Isn't that cool? But another look around. It's just a neat building. And as I say, it was an easy Pompeii. This is called Easy Pompeii, so there's a lot more to see. Actually, there's 146 acres at the Pompeii. So there's a lot to look about, learn about. Look it up. Actually, it's the best thing to look up in the world. That's really cool. As we're leaving, we're coming back out. We're going to be going directly back to the... You're going to see the original Samnite walls that the Samnites built, but the Romans improved upon them by adding towers. So those are Samnite walls. It can be known because of the type of block that was used. That's a Samnite thing. That may be an actually original Roman pipe. And there is the mountain that caused all that grief. That's Mount Vesuvius, looking across the Bay of Naples. And you get an idea just out of context how much of that mountain. Think Mount St. Helen, if you want to get some context. But I'm going to add some points here. Just how big this mountain was. And this is just a maybe. There's a good possibility that it was a lot taller than what you're going to see in just a minute here. But look at how it slopes out. And that's how tall that mountain was, or maybe even taller. That's a lot of material that came out. So how much material? Well, it moved the shore away from Pompeii by a full kilometer, to the point where and filled that area in and the sea, that you can have a highway and the train lines going across that fill from that volcano. And now we're sailing north from the next stop, Florence and Pisa. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. You can look up this stuff. It's pretty cool.